By the River Piedra, I sat down and wept. By Paulo Coelho. Set in Spain. Sometimes an uncontrollable feeling of sadness grips us, he said. We recognize that the magic moment of the day has passed and that we've done nothing about it. Life begins to conceal its magic and its art. We have to listen to the child we once were, the child who still exists inside us. That child understands magic moments. We can stifle its cries, but we cannot silence its voice. The child we once were is still there. Blessed are the children, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. If we are not reborn, if we cannot learn to look at life with the innocence and the enthusiasm of childhood, it makes no sense to go on living. There are many ways to commit suicide. Those who try to kill the body violate God's law. Those who try to kill the soul also violate God's law, even though their crime is less visible to others. We have to pay attention to what the child in our heart tells us. We should not be embarrassed by this child. We must not allow this child to be scared because the child is alone and is almost never heard. We must allow the child to take the reins of our lives. We must allow the child to take the reins of our lives. The child knows that each day is different from every other day. We have to allow it to feel loved again. We must please this child, even if this means that we act in ways we are not used to, in ways that may seem foolish to others. Anu 1:16 of the Gnostic Catholic Church. Sol, Sun, 22 degrees Gemini. Leo, 26 Luna, 26 degrees Pisces. Dies Saturni, June 13, 2020. Era Vulgaris, 7:14 a.m. Do what thy wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. The hour of Saturn. Remember that human wisdom is madness in the eyes of God. But if we listen to the child who lives in our soul, our eyes will grow bright. If we do not lose contact with that child, we will not lose contact with life. The colors around me were growing vivid. I felt that I was speaking with more intensity and that my glass made a louder sound when I put it down on the table. A group of about 10 of us were having dinner together after the conference. Everyone was speaking at the same time. And I was smiling, for this night was special. It was the first night in many years that I had not planned. What a joy! When I decided to go to Madrid, I had been in control of my actions and my feelings. Now suddenly, all that had changed. Here I was in a city where I'd never set a foot before, even though it was only 3 hours from the place where I'd been born. I was sitting at a table where I knew only one person, and everyone was speaking to me as if they'd known me for years. I was amazed that I could enter into the conversation, that I could drink and enjoy myself with them. I was there because suddenly life was presented. I was there because suddenly life had presented me with life. I felt no guilt, no fear, no embarrassment as I listened to what he was saying and felt myself growing closer to him. I was more and more convinced that he was right. There are moments when you have to take a risk, to do crazy things. I spend day after day with my texts and notebooks, making this superhuman effort just to purchase my own servitude, I thought. Why do I want that job? What does it offer me as a human being, as a woman? Nothing. I wasn't born to spend my life behind a desk, helping judges dispose of their cases. No, I can't think that way about my life. I'm going to have to return to it this week. It must be the wine. After all, when all is said and done, if you don't work, you don't eat. This is all a dream. It's going to end. But how long can I make the dream go on? For the first time, I considered going to the mountains with him for the next few days. After all, a week of holidays was about to begin. Who are you? A woman at our table asked me. A childhood friend, I answered. Was he doing these things when he was a child too? What things? The conversation at the table seemed to fade and then die out. You know, the miracles. He could always speak well. I didn't understand what she meant. Everyone laughed, including him. I had no idea what was going on. But maybe because of the wine, I felt relaxed. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to be in control. I looked around and then said something that I forgot the next moment. I was thinking about the upcoming holiday. It was good to be here. Meeting new people, talking about serious things, but always with a touch of humor. I felt like I was really participating in the world. For at least this one night, I was no longer just seeing the real world through television or the newspapers. When I returned to Zaragoza, I'd have stories to tell. If I accepted his invitation for the holidays, I'd have whole years of memories to live on. He was so right not to pay any attention to my remarks about Soria, I thought. And I began to feel sorry for myself. For so many years, my drawer, full of memories, had held the same old stories. Have some more wine, a white-haired man said, filling my glass. I drank it down. I kept thinking about how few things I would have had to tell my children and grandchildren if I hadn't come with them. I'm counting on our trip to France, he said to me, so that only I could hear. The wine had freed my tongue, but only if you understand one thing. What's that? It's about what you said before the conference at the cafe. The medal? No, I said, looking into his eyes and doing everything I could to appear sober. What you said. We'll talk about it later, he said, quickly trying to change the subject. He said that he loved me. He said that he loved me. We hadn't had time to talk about it, but I knew I could convince him that it wasn't true. If you want me to take the trip with you, you have to listen to me, I said. I don't want to talk about it here. We're having a good time. You left Soria when you were very young, I went on. I'm only a link to your past. I've reminded you of your roots, and that's what makes you think as you do. But that's all it is. There can't be any love involved. He listened, but didn't answer. Someone asked him his opinion about something, and our conversation was interrupted. At least I've explained how I feel, I thought. The love he was talking about only exists in fairy tales. In real life, love has to be possible, even if it is not returned right away. Love can only survive when the hope exists that you will be able to win over the person you desire. Anything else is fantasy. From the other side of the table, as if he had guessed what I was thinking, he raised a glass in a toast. To love, he said. I could tell that he too was a little drunk. So I decided to take advantage of the opening. To those wise enough to understand that sometimes love is nothing more than the foolishness of childhood, I said. The wise are wise only because they love. And the foolish are foolish only because they think they can understand love, he answered. The others at the table heard him, and in a moment, an animated discussion about love was in full swing. Everyone had a strong opinion and was defending their position tooth and nail. It took more wine to calm things down. Finally, someone said it was getting too late and that the owner of the restaurant wanted to close. We have 5 days of vacation, someone shouted from another table. If the owner wants to close, it's just because we're getting too serious. Everyone laughed, except me. Then where can we talk about serious things? Someone asked the drunk at the other end of the table. In church, said the drunk. And this time all of us laughed. My friend stood up. I thought he was going to start a fight because we were all acting like adolescents. And that's what adolescents do. Fighting is as much a part of being a teenager as the kisses, the secret embraces, the loud music, and the fast pace. YouTube offers an option to increase the speed of reading from 1 time to 1.5 or even 2 times. Click the colon symbol and you'll find a pacing button and even a different accent when you do so. But instead he took my hand and moved toward the door. We should go, he said. It's getting late. It was raining in Bilbao. Lovers need to know how to lose themselves and then find. Lovers need to know how to lose themselves and then how to find themselves again. He was able to do both well. Now he was happy. And as we returned to the hotel, he sang, Son los locos que inventaron el amor. The song was right. It must have been the lunatics who invented love. I was still feeling the effects of the wine, but I was struggling to think clearly. I had to stay in control of the situation if I wanted to make the trip with him. But it will be easy to be in control because I'm not too emotional, I thought. Anyone who can conquer his heart can conquer the world. con un poema y un trombón a divelarte el corazón. To lose my heart to you with a poem and a trombone. I wish I didn't have to control my heart. If I could surrender, even if only for a weekend, this rain falling on my face would feel different. If love were easy, I would be embracing him now, and the words of his song would be our story. If Zaragoza weren't waiting for me after the holidays, I'd want to stay drunk and be free to kiss him, caress him, say the things and hear the things that lovers say and do to each other. But no, I can't. I don't want to. Salgamos al volar, piedra mía, querida mía. The song says, yes, let's fly away, but under my conditions. He still didn't know what I was going to say. He still didn't know that I was going to say yes to his invitation. Why did I want to take this risk? Because I was drunk. Because I was tired of days that were all the same. But this weariness will pass. I'm going to want to get back to Zaragoza, where I have chosen to live. My studies are waiting for me. The husband I'm still looking for is waiting for me. A husband who won't be as difficult to find. An easier life waits for me, with children and grandchildren, with a clear budget and a yearly vacation. I don't know what his fears are, but I know my own. I don't need new fears. My own are enough. I was sure I could never fall in love with someone like him. I knew him too well, all his weaknesses and fears. I just couldn't admire him as the others seemed to. But love is much like a dam. If you allow a tiny crack to form through which only a trickle of water can pass, that trickle will quickly bring down the whole structure, and soon no one will be able to control the force of the current. For when those walls come down, then love takes over. For when those walls come down, then love takes over, and it no longer matters what is possible or impossible. It doesn't even matter whether we can keep the loved one at our side. To love is to lose control. No, I couldn't allow such a crack to form, no matter how small. Hey, hold up a minute. He stopped singing immediately. Quick steps echoed on the damp pavement behind us. Let's get out of here, he said, grabbing my arm. Wait, a man shouted. I need to talk to you. But he moved ahead even more rapidly. This has nothing to do with us, he said. Let's get to the hotel. Yet it did have to do with us. There was no one else on the street. My heart was beating fast, and the effects of the wine disappeared altogether. I remembered that Bilbao was in Basque country, and that terrorist attacks were common. The man's footsteps came closer. Let's go, he said, hurrying along. But it was too late. A man's figure, soaked from head to foot, stepped in front of us. Stop, please, the man said, for the love of God. I was frightened. I looked around frantically for a means of escape. hoping that by some miracle a police car would appear. Instinctively, I clutched at his arm, but he pulled away. "Please," said the man, "I heard that you were in the city. I need your help. It's my son." The man knelt on the pavement and began to weep. The man knelt on the pavement and began to weep. "Please," he said, "please." My friend gasped for breath. I watched as he lowered his head and closed his eyes. For a few minutes, the silence was broken only by the sound of the rain and the sobs of the man kneeling on the sidewalk. "Go to the hotel, Pilar," he said finally. "Get some sleep. I won't be back until dawn." Monday, December 6, 1993. Saturday, June 13th, 2020, 7:33 a.m. Love is a trap. When it appears, we see only its light, not its shadows. "Look at the land around here," he said. "Let's lie down on the ground and feel the planet's heart beating. But I'll get my coat dirty, and it's the only one I have with me." We were driving through the hills of olive groves. After yesterday's rain in Bilbao, the morning sun made me sleepy. I hadn't brought sunglasses. I hadn't brought anything since I'd expected to return to Zaragoza 2 days ago. I'd had to sleep in a shirt he loaned me. And I bought a t-shirt at a shop near the hotel in Bilbao so that at least I could wash the one I was wearing. "You must be sick of seeing me in the same clothes every day," I said, trying to joke about something trivial to see if that would make all this seem real. "I'm glad you're here." He hadn't mentioned love again since he had given me the medal. But he had been in a good mood. He seemed to be 18 again. Now he walked along beside me, bathed in the clear morning light. "What do you have to do over there?" I asked, pointing toward the peaks of the Pyrenees on the horizon. "Beyond those mountains lies France," he answered with a smile. "I know. I studied geography too, you know. I'm just curious about why we have to go there." He paused, smiling to himself. "So you can take a look at a house you might be interested in." "If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent, forget it. I don't have any money." It didn't matter to me whether we visited a village in Nevada or went all the way to France. I just didn't want to spend the holidays in Zaragoza. "You see," I heard my brain say to my heart, "You see, you're happy that you've accepted his invitation. You've changed. You just haven't recognized it yet." No, I hadn't changed at all. I was just relaxing a little. Look at the stones on the ground. They were rounded, with no sharp edges. They looked like pebbles from the sea. But the sea had never been here in the fields of Nevada. "The feet are laborers, pilgrims, and explorers smooth these. The feet of pilgrims, laborers, and explorers smooth these stones," he said. "The stones were changed, and the travelers were too. Has traveling taught you all the things you know? No. I learned from the miracles of revelation. I didn't understand, but I didn't pursue it, for now I was content to bask in the beauty of the sun, the fields, and the mountains. Where are we going now? I asked. Nowhere. Let's just enjoy the morning. The sun and the countryside. We have a long trip ahead of us. If you are a Marvel Disney geek, a lot of words from the Avengers series were taken from this book. Where are we going now? I asked. Nowhere. Let's just enjoy the morning. The sun and the countryside. We have a long trip ahead of us. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, Do you still have the medal? Sure. I've kept it, I said, and began to walk faster. I didn't want to talk about the medal. I didn't want to talk about anything that might ruin the happiness and freedom of our morning together. A village appeared. Like most medieval cities, it was situated atop a mountain peak, even from a distance. I could see the tower of a church and the ruins of a castle. Let's drive to that village, I suggested. Although he seemed reluctant, he agreed. I could see a chapel along the road and I wanted to stop and go in. I didn't pray anymore, but the silence of churches always attracted me. Don't feel guilty, I was saying to myself. If he's in love, that's his problem. He asked about the medal. I knew that he was hoping we'd get back to our conversation at the cafe. But I was afraid of hearing something I didn't want to hear. I won't get into it. I won't bring up the subject. But what if he really did love me? What if he thought that we could transform this love into something deeper? Ridiculous, I thought to myself. There's nothing deeper than love. In fairy tales, the princesses kiss the frogs, and the frogs become princes. In real life, the princesses kiss princes, and the princes turn into frogs. After driving for another half hour, we reached the chapel. An old man was seated on the steps. He was the first person we'd seen since our drive began. It was the end of fall, and in keeping with tradition, the fields had been returned once more to the Lord. Who would fertilize the land with his blessings and allow human beings to harvest his sustenance by the sweat of their brows? Let the salt admonish the water to perform the state of the great sea. Hello, he said to the man. How are you? What is the name of this village? San Martin de Onx. Onx? I said. It sounds like the name of a gnome. The old man didn't understand the joke. Disappointed, I walked toward the entrance to the chapel. You can't go in, warned the old man. It closed at noon. If you like, you can come back at 4 this afternoon. Translation from Elvish to Moorish English. Marhaba, he said to the man. ¿Qué tal? What is the name of this village? Son Muhammad de Ons. Ons? I said. It sounds like the name of a netter. The old man didn't understand the joke. Disappointed, I walked toward the entrance of the chapel. La juice, la juice. You can't go in, warned the man. It closed at Dhuhr. If you like, you can come back at Asr. This afternoon. The door was open and I could look inside, although it was so bright out that I couldn't see clearly. Just a minute. I asked. I'd like to say a prayer. Tahiyat the Masjid. I'm very sorry. It's already closed. He was listening to my conversation with the old man but didn't say anything. All right then, let's leave, I said. There's no point in arguing. He continued to look at me, his gaze empty, distant. Don't you want to see the chapel? He asked. I could see he didn't approve of my decision. He thinks I'm weak, cowardly, unable to fight for what I want. Even without a kiss, the princess is transformed into a frog. Remember yesterday I said, you ended our conversation in the bar because you didn't want to argue with me. Now when I do the same thing, you criticize me? The old man watched our discussion impassively. He was probably happy that something was actually happening. There is a place where all the mornings, all the afternoons, and all the nights were the same. The door to the church is open, he said, speaking to the old man. If you want some money, we can give you some, but she wants to see the church. It's too late. Fine. We'll go in anyway. He took my arm and we went in. My heart was pounding. The old man couldn't. My heart was pounding. The old man could get nasty, call the cops, ruin the trip. Why are you doing this? Because you wanted to see the chapel. I was so nervous I couldn't even focus on what was inside. The argument and my attitude had ruined our perfect moment. Had ruined our perfect morning. I listened carefully for any sounds from outside. The old man might call the village police, I thought. Trespassers in the chapel, thieves. They're breaking the law. The old man had said the chapel was closed, that visiting hours were over. He's a poor old man, unable to keep us from going in, and the police will be tough on us because we offended a feeble old man. I stayed inside the chapel just long enough to show that I'd really wanted to see it. As soon as enough time had passed for an imaginary Ave Maria, I said, let's go. Don't be frightened, Pilar. Don't just fall into playing a role. I didn't want my problem with the old man to become a problem with him, so I tried to stay calm. I don't know what you mean by playing a role. Some people always have to be doing battle with someone, sometimes even with themselves. It's a Jersey thing. Battling with their own lives. So they begin to create a kind of play in their head, and they write the script based on their frustrations. I know a lot of people like that. I know what you mean. But the worst part is that they cannot present the play by themselves, he continued. So they begin to invite other actors to join in. That's what the fellow outside was doing. He wanted revenge for something, and he chose us to play a part. If we had accepted his restrictions, we'd be regretting it now. We would have been defeated. We would have agreed to participate in his miserable life and in his frustrations. The man's aggression was easy to see. So it was easy for us to refuse the role he wanted us to play. But other people also invite us to behave like victims when they complain about the unfairness of life. For example, and ask us to agree, to offer advice, to participate. He looked into my eyes. Be careful. When you join in that game, you always wind up losing. He was right, but I still wasn't happy about being inside the chapel. Okay, but I've already said my prayer. I've done what I wanted to do. Let's go. The contrast between the darkness inside the chapel and the strong sunlight blinded me for a few moments. When my eyes adjusted, I saw that the old man was no longer there. Let's have some lunch, he said, walking in the direction of the village. I drank 2 glasses of wine at lunch. I'd never done that in my whole life. He was speaking to the waiter, who told him that there were several Roman ruins in the area. I was trying to listen to their conversation, but I was having trouble stifling my bad mood. The princess has turned into a frog. So what? Who do I have to prove anything to? I wasn't looking for anything, not for a man, and certainly not for love. I knew it, I said to myself. I knew he was going to turn my world upside down. My brain warned me. But my heart didn't want to take its advice. I've paid a considerable price for the little I have gained. I've been forced to deny myself many things I've wanted, to abandon so many roads that were open to me. I've sacrificed my dreams in the name of a larger dream and a peaceful soul. I didn't want to give up that peace. You're tense, he said, breaking off his conversation with the waiter. Yes, I am. I think that old man went for the police. I think this is a small place and they know where we are. I think this boldness of yours about having lunch here could wind up ruining our holiday. He twirled his glass of water. Surely he knew that this was not the problem, that I was actually ashamed. Why do we always do this? Why do we notice the speck in our eye but not the mountains, the fields, the olive groves? Listen, that's not going to happen, he said. The old man has gone home and has already forgotten the whole thing. Trust me. That's not why I'm so tense, you idiot. Listen to your heart more, he went on. That's just it. I am listening to it, I said, and I feel that we should leave. I'm not enjoying this place. You shouldn't drink during the day. It doesn't help anything. Up to that point, I'd controlled myself.
Now it was time to say what I thought. You think you know everything? I said. That you know all about magic moments, the inner child? I don't know what you're doing here with me. He laughed. I admire you, and I admire the battle you're waging with your heart. What battle? Never mind, he said. But I knew what he was talking about. Don't kid yourself, I said. We can talk about it if you like. You're mistaken about my feelings. He stopped fooling with his glass and looked at me. No, I'm not mistaken. I know you don't love me. This confused me even more. But I'm going to fight for your love, he continued. There are some things in life that are worth fighting for to the end. You are worth it, he said. I turned away, trying to pretend that I was interested in the restaurant's decor. I had been feeling like a frog, and suddenly I was a princess again. I want to believe what you're saying, I thought to myself. It won't change anything, but at least I won't feel so weak, so incapable. I apologize for my outburst, I said. He smiled, signaled to the waiter, and paid the check. On the way back to the car, I became confused again. Maybe it was the sun, but no, it was autumn, and the sun was weak. Perhaps the old man, but he disappeared a while ago. All this was so new to me. Life takes us by surprise and orders us to move toward the unknown, even when we don't want to, and when we think we don't need to. I tried to concentrate on the scenery, but I couldn't focus on the olive groves. The village atop the mountain, the chapel with the old man at the gate, all of it was so unfamiliar. I remembered how much I drunk the day before and the song he had sung. Las tardecitas de Buenos Aires tienen este no sé, qué sé yo. Viste salir de tu casa por Arenales. Why sing of the nights of Buenos Aires when we were in Bilbao? I didn't live on a street called Arenales. What had gotten into him? What was that song you were singing yesterday? I asked. Balada para un loco, he said. Why do you ask about it now? I don't know, but I had a reason. I knew he'd sung that song as a kind of snare. He made me memorize the words just as I would memorize coursework for an examination. He could have sung a song I was familiar with, but he'd chosen one I'd never heard before. It was a trap. Later, if I heard the song played on the radio or at a club, I'd think of him, of Bilbao, and of a time in my life when autumn turned to spring. I'd recall the excitement, the adventure, and the child who was reborn out of God knows where. That's what he was thinking. He was wise, experienced. He knew how to woo the woman he wanted. I'm going crazy, I told myself. I must be an alcoholic, drinking so much 2 days in a row. He knows all the tricks. He's controlling me, leading me along with his sweetness. I admire the battle you are waging with your heart, he had said at the restaurant. But he was wrong. Because I had fought with my heart and defeated it long ago, I was certainly not going to become passionate about something that was impossible. I knew my limits. I knew how much suffering I could bear. Say something, I demanded, as we walked back to the car. What? Anything. Talk to me. So he began to tell me about the visions of the Virgin Mary at Fatima. I don't know why he came up with that, but the story of the 3 shepherds who had spoken to the Virgin distracted me. My heart relaxed. Yes, I know my limits, and I know how to stay in control. We arrived at night in a fog so dense we could hardly see where we were. I could make out only a small plaza, a lamp post, some medieval houses barely illuminated by the yellow light, and a well. The fog, he exclaimed. I couldn't understand why he was so excited. We're in Saint-Savin, he explained. The name meant nothing to me, but we were in France, and that in itself thrilled me. Why this place? I asked. Because the house I want you to see is here, he answered, laughing. Also, I promised that I would come back here on the day of the Immaculate Conception. Here? Well, near here. He stopped the car. When we stepped out, he took my hand, and we began to walk through the fog. This place became a part of my life quite unexpectedly, he said. You too, I thought. When I first came here, I thought I was lost, but I wasn't. Actually, I was just rediscovering it. You talk in riddles sometimes, I said. This is where I realized how much I needed you in my life. I looked away. I couldn't understand him. But what does that have to do with losing your way? Let's find someone who'll rent us a room because the 2 hotels in this village are only open during the summer. Then we'll have dinner at a restaurant, no tension, no fear of the police, no need to think about running back to the car. And when the wine loosens our tongues, we'll talk about many things. We both laughed. I already felt more relaxed. During the drive here, I had looked back over the wild things I'd been thinking. And as we crossed over the top of the mountains that separate France from Spain, I'd asked God to cleanse my soul of tension and fear. I was tired of playing the child and acting the way many of my friends did. The ones who are afraid that love is impossible without even knowing what love is. If I stayed like that, I would miss out on everything good that these few days with him might offer. Careful, I thought. Watch out for the break in the dam. If that occurs, nothing in the world will be able to stop it. May the Virgin protect us from here on, he said. I remained silent. Why didn't you say amen? He asked. Because I don't think that's important anymore. There was a time when religion was a part of my life, but that time has passed. He turned around and began to walk back to the car. I still pray, I went on. I prayed as we were crossing the Pyrenees. But it's something automatic, and I'm not even sure I still believe in it. Why? Because I've suffered, and God didn't listen to my prayers. Because many times in my life I have tried to love with all my heart, and my love has wound up being trampled or betrayed. If God is love, he should have cared more about my feelings. God is love. But the one who understands this best is the Virgin. I burst out laughing. When I turned to look at him, I saw that he was serious. This was not a joke. The Virgin understands the mystery of total surrender, he went on, and having loved and suffered, she freed us from pain, in the same way that Jesus freed us from sin. Jesus was the Son of God. They say that the Virgin was merely a woman who happened to receive him in her womb. I said, I was trying to make up for my laughter and let him know that I respected his faith. He opened the car door and took out our bags. When I tried to take mine from his hand, he smiled. Let me carry your bag. No one's done that for me in a long time, I thought. We knocked on the door of the first house, but the woman said she didn't rent rooms. At the second door, no one answered. At the third, a kind old man greeted us, but when we looked at the room, there was only a double bed. I turned it down. Maybe we should head for a larger city, I suggested as we left. We'll find a room, he said. Do you know The Exercise of the Other? It's part of a story written 100 years ago, whose author... Forget the author and tell me the story, I interrupted. We were once more walking along the only street in Saint-Savin. Man runs into an old friend who had somehow never been able to make it in life. I should give him some money, he thinks, but instead he learns that his old friend has grown rich and is actually seeking him out to repay the debts he had run up over the years. They go to a bar they used to frequent together, and the friend buys drinks for everyone there. When they ask him how he became so successful, he answers that until only a few days ago, he had been living the role of the other. What is the other, they ask. The other is the one who taught me what I should be like, but not what I am. The other believes that it is our obligation to spend our entire life thinking about how to get our hands on as much money as possible so that we will not die of hunger when we are old. So we think so much about money and our plans for acquiring it that we discover we are alive only when our days on earth are practically done. And then it's too late. And you? Who are you? I am just like everyone else who listens to their hearts, a person who is enchanted by the mystery of life, who is open to miracles, who experiences joy and enthusiasm for what they do. It's just that the other, afraid of disappointment, kept me from taking action. But there is suffering in life, one of the listeners said, and there are defeats. No one can avoid them, but it's better to lose some of the battles in the struggle for your dreams than to be defeated without ever even knowing what you're fighting for. That's it, another listener asked. Yes, that's it. When I learned this, I resolved to become the person I had always wanted to be. The other stood there in the corner of my room, watching me. But I will never let the other into myself again. Even though it has already tried to frighten me, warning me that it's risky not to think about the future. For the moment that I ousted the other from my life, the divine energy began to perform its miracles. In spite of the fact that my friend had long ago expelled the other from his life, he still wasn't having much luck finding us lodging for the night. But I knew he hadn't told me that story for his own sake. He had told it for mine. He seemed to be talking about my fears, my insecurity, and my unwillingness to see what was wonderful because tomorrow it might disappear, and then I would suffer. The gods throw the dice, and they don't ask whether we want to be in the game or not. They don't care if when you go, you leave behind a lover, a home, a career, or a dream. The gods don't care whether you have it all, whether it seems that your every desire can be met through hard work and persistence. The gods don't want to know about your plans and your hopes. Somewhere, they're throwing the dice, and you are chosen. From then on, winning or losing is only a question of luck. The gods throw the dice, freeing love from its cage, and love can create or destroy depending on the direction of the wind when it is set free. For the moment, the wind was blowing in his favor, but the wind is as capricious as the gods, and deep inside myself I had begun to feel some gusts. At last, as if fate wanted to show me that the story of the other was true, and the universe always conspires to help the dreamer, we found a house to stay in, with a room with separate beds.